Our common relationships with language and thought, culture and expectation incline us to rather peculiarly disabled modes of questioning. And the 7 question words, why, what, which, when, where, how, and who, are profound opportunities if we can understand the breadth of the purchase they give us and the dangerous narrowness they can deliver when we're unaware of their peculiar properties. I'll give you a few examples that I find interesting. People are often trying to figure out what it is that's going on. What is this? What's happening? And of course, these questions come from a usually unstated, sort of subtle concern or motive, right? In other words, we want to find out if something we think is happening might be happening here, or something we've heard can happen. Is this an instance of this thing we've heard about? And this kind of thing. But there's some peculiar, language is unimaginably deceptive. And it's not really like what we are like. It's not like what things are like. It's not like what time-space is like. It's not much like the world. It's not like being. It's a bit like a peculiar overlay into which we can depart being and build little representations and stories and descriptions and theories and mathematics and science and things. But it's uninhabitable. You can't live in that overlay. Being doesn't happen really in there. So it can be incredibly deceptive. When we think about what something is or what's going on, this particular question word, we're going to naturally invoke, meaning partially inherit and partially create categorical boundaries. And then within those, we can triangulate identity and derive identity. Oh, it's a this. Oh, that's what happened. Yet, of course, any derivative we come up with is going to be astonishingly incomplete. In fact, the process is going to throw away 99% of approaches we could take to deriving identity to produce the kind of derivation we are looking for, the kind of derivation we are motivated to seek or find or discover. So, when we trust these, it's very deceptive. And especially if we can say that the derivations are factual. Now they seem to have an objective universal authority. And this can deceive us even further because if we were relating without the representational overlay, we would have a sense of, how shall I put it, almost unconscious, natural being in relation, just eating food, but no idea of eating, or even an idea of food. No ideas. Yeah? But once we have the representational overlay, now we're going to relate from experience into the overlay. And then that will very much change our perspective, then back into experience, then back into the overlay. And we'll be weaving this process so that we're trying to sort of compromise, right, between embodied, nonverbal experience and representations, norms, standards, metrics, ideas, words, things like this. So obviously, although we call this little thing is actually a seed from a tree. We call this a seed. Yeah. But anyone who's carefully thought about it realizes that whatever this might be, it has nothing to do with the word seed or any of those ideas. Those are derivations of rather generally conserved histories of relation with these kinds of things. What this is can't be answered definitively, because every time someone asks, or anytime we pursue that question, we're going to have a unique set of situations and motives involved in producing the categories by which we will evaluate this thing, at the very least, right? Language is a peculiar kind of agreement to use a structured system of codes to refer to, primarily categorically, things, beings, relationships, identities, and stuff like this. So that I can say tree and you can have some idea of what I'm talking about. But that word doesn't contain anything about really the tree, a tree, an actual tree, or having a relationship with a tree, right? Like an actual tree that I know or eat fruit from or am eating fruit from. And even here I'm making language, right? So I'm still in the overlay. So the tokens that we use to refer to things and to decide what they are kind of how should we put this? They're a prosthesis. There's sets of prostheses that allow us to navigate and rearrange structures in a representational overlay that we can compare with reality. And we're supposed to try to not just update the overlay, but updates our methods that produce overlays, right? We're supposed to have a meta update, like an operating system update rather than just getting a new app, for example. But we aren't very good at that as a species so far. We're actually trapped in really wildly complex spirals of conservations from other cultures and histories and languages, so that we'd have to struggle wildly to catch up to our actual ability to just be intelligent in the moment, because we're dragging all of these ideas about what's going on. And they're associated with words and theories and such, descriptions, stories, narratives. One of the funny things is, if we try to make a really simple, clear answer, an almost childlike answer so that we can get some orientation. Now I'm coming back to a little lost thread in my mind here. When we ask what is going on, someone's asking. And often we pretend that someone is in everyone. This is common in our thought and relationships with language. Rather than me, or an actual person in an actual situation who's actually asking. So we ask a lot of these kind of theoretical questions that are even being asked by theoretical people. If we try to say something really true and simple about what's going on, it becomes rather difficult. And some of the answers are surprising. And one of the reasons that language is so deceptive, and one of the reasons why both religion and science are so incredibly important in human history, and will always remain this way, I think, is we don't have any idea what the context is. We don't know what the sky means. We don't, most of us, unless we're religious or scientific, right? Because religion is a way of saying what everything is about. It's It's what I call a uniphore. It's a way to say all of this is for thus and such. And science is the representational result of the removal, the sort of abstraction of that into a much more universal, right? We will all agree that 1 + 1 = 2. Fire is hot. It's like this. Whether we believe that the universe is a beautiful garden filled with living minds and children, or whether we believe it's the creation of a deity or an array of deities, or whether we believe it's an illusory, dreamlike environment, no matter what we think the world is about, the universe is about, and is for, right? We have these highly exact and extremely abstract prostheses, science, particularly mathematics, that give us real purchase on some of the mechanics that can be agreed universally, should probably be agreed universally in a limited domain of authoritative purchase on the nature of things. Right? So that the fact that we've discovered some astonishing facts in mathematics doesn't really help us to understand what's this about. But so I think it's important to notice that we're missing a context, right? We've either got one that was inherited from very poorly understood religions, or we've assembled maybe a kind of a pet version, a local, personal patchwork quilt of what this is, what's going on, why we're here, what this is for, why we're born, living, die. If there's any schema, if there's any meta picture of that, right, of which we are instances, what is that like? What's that about? So, or we might just not know. And you don't have to know. Although, if you don't know, then your tokens are missing a domain of sort of origin, right? What do they link to? They just kind of stand alone in free space if you don't know what's going on. So we've got a problem as human beings in modern cultures in that we don't have any idea really what's going on, or we have millions of rather incoherent and poorly formed ideas. And there's some way to find out, by the way, what's going on. If you're a human being, you can go directly to nature, inquire in person, sort of leave the cultural and linguistic ideas behind and just go ask with your being of the sky, right? For in a sense, in a very real sense, you are both a product of time-space and also an expression of its very face and spirit, yeah. And a child and a companion and many ways of thinking about it. So no matter what I might blather on or what you might hear about from anyone, right, you are personally endowed with the capacity to go and inquire in person. And I encourage you to do that with the deepest kind of sincerity and sobriety. Nature will answer, the sky will answer if you ask with a coherent, sincere sense. But so to get back to what I was meandering toward, if you want to get a really simple answer to what's going on around here, the simplest kind of one is that whatever time-space is, this around here, all the stuff we see here, animals and eyes and living minds and things, these are like the flora and fauna, right, in the garden of time-space. Time-space is all around the Earth. The Earth's this little garden floating in that stuff, and all the little things that are being expressed here that often are incredibly, amazingly beautiful and astonishing, little insects and animals and all the relationships as if they came from other worlds. They did. They came from time-space, right? So if the creatures here look like, that looks like an alien, that's because we're all aliens. Earth is a planet in time-space. Living things come from planets in time-space. That's what we got here. So we have here an astonishing what's going on that is even in a sense an expression of all possible worlds in time-space, this unique one. Just like you are an expression of all possible people on Earth, right? This world is an expression of all possible worlds in time-space. And so it has all of the characters, profound, shocking beauty, endless novelty of the medium which it emerges. So one of the answers is what's going on around here. Well, whatever time-space is, this is like that too. This is that same kind of thing. But one of the really simple, and you don't have to know anything about time-space, although I think the ancestors probably thought of it more like an ocean, right? So that if you were looking at the horizon of the ocean, that just went right up into the sky, yeah. And they were the same thing, right? The ocean was the sky having come down, like in a curve onto the Earth. So it seemed like the same stuff. If you went far enough out on the ocean, you'd go right up into the sky. It wouldn't be necessarily that you'd fall off the Earth into the sky, I don't think, right? The way we tend to think of it, because we're planar. But one of the simplest things to understand or think about what's going on around here is very surprising and unexpected. And when you try to say really true things that are simple, it's funny what often comes out. Like if I wanted to say something that I really had faith in right now, I could say, I am making mouth noises. Right? That was true while I was saying it. But to get back to my point, what's going on around here is there's one really surprising answer that I don't think most of us would ever consider, and it's momentous because it answers every question, every possible question. The sun. The sun is going on around here. Everything on Earth, our minds, our languages, our sciences, our religions, all of these things are expressions of the sun in a very obvious way. Take the sun away, all that stuff just disappears. It's gone. All of human history is gone, all of life, all of thought, all of conjecture. There's no time, because as far as we know, there are no beings anymore. So when we want to ask, like, what's going on around here? Well, we're going around what's going on around here. Or even more peculiar, in a more interesting way of thinking, there's nothing else going on around here. So all that is going on around here is the sun. This is the sun. This world is the sun. I am the sun. Everything here is the sun. It's just a matter of where you draw the line, right? Do you draw it at the photosphere? Do you draw it at the boundary of the solar formation of the interstellar medium, right? The bubble that the sun kind of makes in interstellar space. Somewhat like the membrane of a cell, maybe. Right? Not that I'm making that comparison. So if we do that, then everything inside there is the sun. You are the sun. My voice is the sun. Nothing around here isn't the sun. What's going on around here? The sun. And we don't usually think this way because it doesn't seem necessarily pragmatically useful or theoretically powerful. Right? And yet there are some very, very important reasons to be deeply aware of this, whether or not we intend to have a metaphysical or spiritual aspect to such thoughts. Because if we don't recognize what I'll call complex language Marynimach origin, right? That my hand is an extension of my body, right? And there is a little gap in here, my wrist, yeah, but it's covered with flesh. Well, the difference between we are Marynimach, this world is a Marynimach extension of time-space. Our solar system is like this hand, right? Time-space has a galaxy, galaxies have solar systems. So solar systems have planets, planets have little living beings on them. So there's this Marynimach link of origin. And we're inclined, because of language, to think that distance means separation, but distance can mean a new way of being unified. And in our case, it does. Everything around here is the sun. So when we start to realize this, really understand, oh goodness, that person is the sun. All these beings are like hairs, right, on an organ that's a direct expression of the solar history and moment. We start to realize this. We realize that whatever the sun is, it doesn't fit in our categories. It certainly isn't a thing. You don't get things. You don't get categories without that. You don't get minds. So what is the category to which that thing belongs? All minds that invent categories descend from that. All beings descend from that around here. All this matter around here was basically collected and kind of shaped and made into little spinning, we think, stuff by that thing. But it's not a thing. And if beings are one of the things that are derived from it, right? The way that ideas or descriptions are derived from experience, maybe, right? That kind of derivation process. If we're just derivations of that, like the hairs on my hand, right? Isn't that a God? What else? There's certainly no other category we have that I'm aware of in English that could possibly point to anything even vaguely similar to what I think is very obviously true. So I encourage you, when you see the sun, to have to sustain some questions, and perhaps even further to seek contact. For the sky is something you're an expression of in a way not too dissimilar to how my hand is an expression of my body. The seeming distinctions of size and distance are deceptive. So what's going on around here? Let's find out more and more, because it's a lot more fascinating, shocking, strange, and brilliant than even our wildest fantasies and religions and sciences. I look forward to discovering more together. Thank you for joining me. Bye for now.